So I just gave the reissue of Origin of Symmetry a go. I wasn't really expecting much from this because my love for Muse kind of died a few years ago. I used to have a mild interest in the band because I'd heard Origin of Symmetry, The Resistance, and little bits of their other albums, and I thought they were pretty good. They weren't one of my favourite bands at the time, but when Simulation Theory came out, that album just completely killed my love for Muse. Because I thought the singles were, well, they kind of ranged like from alright to really, really good. There were a few singles that were actually quite good on that album, but when it came to all the other tracks, they were either alright or they were downright terrible. Like, overall, as a whole listening experience, it left quite a sour taste in my mouth, and I never really came back to Muse that much. So when I found out that this reissue was going to be happening and it was being advertised as a 2021 remix album, I wasn't exactly thrilled. I actually thought that this was going to be a disaster. It sounds like a recipe for disaster because we're talking about modern Muse going back to one of their most highly acclaimed works, and the chances of them butchering something that is a classic, it sounds terrifying. So I went into this album with very low expectations, but now, well, I've listened to this album once, and I've listened to the first leg of the album twice, because the second time I got a bit tired, so I kind of slept for about midday, because my sleep patterns are fucked. But the thing is, though, is that I was expecting this to just be okay, but this reissue made me fall in love with Muse all over again, because this was incredible, and the main reason that I'm making this like very short little video is because I implore anybody who is watching who has even a slight interest in Muse to check this thing out, because this reissue does so much. Like, I haven't really heard Origin of Symmetry, the original 2001 version, in a while, but I do remember a lot of the details featured throughout, and a lot of those details are back, but they sound even better than they used to, and there's also little and even quite big additions added to many of the tracks that improve the atmosphere so much. Like, this album just sounds... It sounds incredible through this reissue. Like, this is easily the best remaster of an album I have ever heard, and I've heard a fair few. I'd say it's probably on the same level as the Pretty Hate Machine remaster that happened in 2010, because I distinctly remember listening to Head Like a Hole on that version, and there was an obvious difference in terms of the sound quality. But here it's just, there's so much that's done here that is just so impressive to witness. I would say that this is a near perfect album now, because there's also an additional track that was featured as a Japanese bonus track on the 2001 version that wasn't in other countries, and it's here. And it works really damn well in the track list, because it comes right after Feeling Good, and it doesn't kill the pacing of the album whatsoever. It's still going strong after Feeling Good, and also that cover of Feeling Good is just... It's probably one of my favourite covers. And I'm not really going to talk much about all the other songs, because I did actually do a review on Album of the Year, because some people in the music community have convinced me to start looking more into Album of the Year, so I didn't write a huge review, but I got most of my thoughts laid out. But what I will mention though is that the Feeling Good cover sounds even more amazing than I remember on this version of the album. And the track Newborn, I'm just going to mention that because it's one of my favourite album openers. I absolutely love everything about that track. It is pretty much a masterpiece. And that goes for a majority of the other tracks as well. Right, this... oh god. I'm so giddy about this. This release just blew my mind. I wasn't expecting it to go to the levels that it did. I feel like if I listened to the 2001 version and this side by side, I am very sure that there's a lot of huge differences between the two, because so much of this sounded a lot better than I remember, and not just in terms of, oh, I remember a track being good, but oh, this is even better than I remember. I mean it more in terms of like the sound quality as well, because I also do think the tracks are even stronger than they used to be for me. I'd say the only thing that stops this album from being a masterpiece would probably be the track Microcuts, mainly because it sounds a bit too distorted and grainy to me. It kind of sounds like Bellany is just, it's really hard to actually understand most of what he's saying on that song, and it's just way too high pitched for me, and I'm a Radiohead fan, so me saying that something sounds really high pitched is really saying something. But yeah, it doesn't really do it for me. I think even the instrumentation on that track is kind of all over the place. But when it comes to all the other tracks though, they are all fan-fucking-tastic. I'd say that this album's a decent to a strong 9. It's very, very close to being a masterpiece, but I do think Microcuts detracts from it overall. Definitely listen to this reissue. It is worth your time. And I'm now gonna start recording the video that I was going to do. So, yeah. This has been Super Wild Jellyfish, and may you strive to be your wild self.